when I've had really hard jobs, it has been overly apparent that my season at that job has ended. And it doesn't mean that my decision to be in that job was wrong. I think that's the other thing that we might need to get out of our head is like, just because a season ends doesn't mean that season was incorrect. And a lot of the times when we make those jumps, we need to kind of remind ourselves of like, okay, this is an okay position. Like, this is all right. So in terms of kind of like shutting the next door and being content, like, I think this might be like, I don't know, not the best advice. I'm speaking from Paige, not from like any employer's perspective. And this might come off really harsh. And so I'm sorry to business owners who like are going to hear this and they'll be like, I'm not like that. You are expendable to a business.
Right.
You are a number, you are a worker. And you don't owe your loyalties to anyone but Jesus. And I had a really hard time kind of accepting that fact with my career changes because I'm loyal to a fault. And actually, like, if you're familiar with Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 6, which is the loyalist.
Yeah.
And so, like, I will stick by you through thick and thin and all of that. But when I realized that I went through a really hard work breakup last year, and I realized, I'm like, oh, these people do not care about me. Like, I tried to do the right thing. I tried to wave the right flags and march the right tune. Mm-hmm. But these people don't care about me. Mm-hmm. And that freed up a lot of relief. And I think especially people who are working in the secular environment, like, people say this a lot, but like, I actually like mean it and like want people to take this advice of like, always keep your options open. Always keep your options open. Even if it's a no and like a not now from God, right? Like, there are those moments where God's like saying like, yes, like, you know, take the next exit. But then there are also those moments where God might be a little more quiet, and might be a little bit more like, that's in your hands. Like, go ahead and make the decision that you think you need to make. Because again, it sounds so bad, but like, at the end of the day, you're just a number to them. You're just an employee, especially if you're working at a bigger company. I think my company has like 3,000 employees, right? Like, not to say that I'm treated like that presently. And it's hard when you're immersed in the company culture, because you're like, no, I matter. Like, the work that I do matters, and it does. But also at the end of the day, like, their numbers matter more. And so when it comes to kind of making a career change, I am always team, like, very pro, like, keep your options open. But also, like, if it's hard, like, God might have you in that hard season for a reason. So, you know, always kind of return to him. Actually, one of my recent interviews on the podcast, I talked to someone and he was like ready to jump ship at a company. He was like, I'm ready to go. Wow. I'm done. God, let me out. And God was like, no, you're staying there. And he did. He was staying there. And for some reason, you know, God had him finishing that assignment at that job until he was released. So I think at the end of the day, just like, keep your ear and heart really tuned in to what God has for you.
Yeah, it can pretty much go either way then, right? Like, it does. I mean, what God wants there, it does have a way in on what ends up happening. Like, someone could be content at their job and God tells them, hey, it's time to go. Or God tells them, hey, it's time to leave. And someone can be discontent. And either of those things can happen too. And we also have our own will and our own desires. And we can try to bypass what ultimately God will want to end up happening. and we can take things into our own hands and just make the decision ourselves.
Yeah.
Where do you think that people, or why do you think people feel a need to be loyal?
I think because so much of our identity is wrapped up in what we do. Like so much of our identity is wrapped up in what we do. And especially if you're at a secular company, and especially if you're at a company, I know I've said this on my podcast before, but I was at a company that forced you, it was mandatory to do a career 5-year growth plan. And I wanted to say, I just want to have a paycheck to take home. Because at the end of the day, I do. Like, that's all I want. Like, my loyalty and my commitment to the company is not dependent on how many times I get promoted or what vision I have for myself, which is very anti-culture, but it is 100% true. And I was so uncomfortable with this thing because I'm like, you know what? Where do I want to be 5-10 years from now? Honestly, I want to have my family and not work here. Like, how can I put that on a sheet that I send to HR? No. But there's those pressures there of like, no, you need to always be thinking about the next. You need to be climbing the next thing. And I actually was at a company, and I understood the heart behind what the CEO was saying, but it did not land that way with everyone, with a lot of other people from the company. And they said, like, it was their all-in campaign. And they said, either you're all in or you're all out and you can leave.
Oh, wow.
And we'll pay you through the rest of the month. And a lot of people took that to mean like you have to sacrifice up to this point. Like, you have to sacrifice your everything if you're going to be working here. That's how a lot of people took it. I didn't take it that way. But there is that mentality when you enter into workplaces of people who are saying, what's your next step? How are you climbing the ladder? Where are you looking to next? How is this impacting your future? When really, like, my biggest question is, like, how is this impacting my family? And how is this impacting the other areas of my life that mean more to me than this?
Tune in for next week for the Every Effort podcast. Thanks for listening.